What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac, and this is Landman EDH. It's the Halloween season, and this video is over 20 decks based around zombies. Now, I'll talk about the decks, the lore behind them, and some fun zombie movie lore to top it all off. If you think these will be the run of the mill zombie decks, you haven't been to my channel yet, or you haven't been paying attention. Welcome to the channel, by the way. If you learn about some new cards, some facts about magic lore or movies, or just like the decks, consider subscribing for more things like this. I may turn this into a series. This first one obviously is about zombies, but I can do it about any creature type. If you want that, go ahead, comment down below. In Magic the Gathering lore, you are a planeswalker, right? You're just chilling, doing your planeswalker thing, going from plane to plane, getting all the candy by trick or treating from various worlds. Oh, by the way, trick or treat is a thing on every plane. My source is just trust me, bro, don't look it up. Now you're on Ravnica, you go to Karloff Manor because they have the full size candy bars. But you'd be wrong to think you're safe to just go door to door throughout the multiverse. There are threats at every corner. One of the greatest threats are the undead. Sure, they're 2-2 zombies, not a big threat to you. But what if those 2-2 zombies were a horde of them? Or what if they're a wizard known as a lich? What if they're gods? You need to know all the threats you'll be facing during this trick or treat night. That way you get candy and not bitten. The first use of the word zombie in Western culture was used in 1929 by this guy, William Seabrook. He was a really strange guy. He was into the occult and magic. He wrote a book called Magic Island about a guy who turned other people into zombies and forced them to do work for him. But they weren't like zombies as we know today, they were more like brain controlled humans. Now, the idea of this was caused by voodoo, not a virus. He was very obsessed with African culture, and that's kind of how he brought it into our culture. It was turned into a movie called The White Zombie. A man decades later named George Romero made a movie called Night of the Living Dead in 1968. It was a movie about hordes of zombies coming to life. It was more science based. The cause was radiation from a satellite out in space. Not a virus cause, of course, but we are moving from that voodoo cause of zombies to a more science based one. Also, to note, it was the first time we really saw undead swarms of zombies, hordes of zombies, something that we associate them with now, even in Magic gameplay. The first zombies in Magic were from a plane called Dominaria in a set called Alpha. Zombie Master, Scavenging Ghoul, and Scathed Zombies set the tone for them. Each is aligned with the color black. Zombie Master, in its flavor text, suggests it is a necromancer, probably a lich. Scavenging Ghoul is a single zombie that roams around looking for food. The Scathed Zombies was a horde of undead, very classic. Today on Dominaria, there's one place that produces black mana so efficiently it affects the dead, and that is Orborg. This first deck is around Ratadrabik of Orborg. Now, if you go to this guy's house for trick or treat, you might be in for a surprise. He's a 4 mana Orzhov legendary creature zombie wizard. Has Vigilance and War 2. Other zombies you control have Vigilance, and whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary and is a 2-2 black zombie in addition to its other types, and it's a 3-3. Now, this is a really cool card because we can do a few things with it. It cares about the legendary role, which is great. You could put all the legendary zombies in here. That would make it a very flavorful deck because then you can learn all the stories of the legends that you're playing. But also, it combos with stuff that turns things into legendary, which is not a common archetype. One thing the ring, if you remember from Lord of the Rings, does is it makes things legendary. The ring reads like this. Your ring bearer is legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Whenever a ring bearer attacks, draw a card, then discard a card. When your ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller sacrifices it at end of combat. Whenever the ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. Now, those are all great abilities. We care mostly about the legendary one. And in this actually kind of combos, you could make this a very combo centric deck if you wanted. You could go the legendary zombie route. That's always on the table. However, you can play stuff that tempts you, like Stalwarts of Osgalath, if that's how you pronounce that. It's a 5 mana white human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and it's a 4/3. Okay, so the way it goes is you have the stalwarts out, which tempts you when it ETBs. You make it legendary with the ring. You choose it as your ring bearer. Then you can sacrifice it, making a token with Ratadrabik. The token tempts you. You can make the token legendary with the ring, making it your ring bearer, it becoming legendary, and then you repeat. This creates an infinite loop of death triggers, ETB triggers, whatever you want. And so it's a combo centric kind of deck. It's really interesting. I've never actually seen this one played. Now, Ratadrabik is a lich, a necromancer that has put part of their soul into an artifact so they can live for up to millennia. Now, he has been around for literally millennia. He saw the first Phyrexian invasion, and slowly he's been getting power and more power, more and more land. Now, none match his caliber nowadays. He is still alive to this day. None match his level of strength, although some try. There's been many Lich in the past, and they all are powerful. However, Dralnu is probably one of the most powerful back in the past. He is one of the few historical figures that were displaced in time. He was thought to exist in present day Dominaria, but it turns out it was either not the real Dralnu or just a temporal echo of his authentic individual self. Now, he did live back in the day, but he is confirmed dead now. However, he used to be allegedly a Metathran, which is the race that Urza built to take on the Phyrexians. This guy was pretty powerful, so he was back in the time of the Phyrexians, allegedly. We're not 100% sure on all the details of his story. Dralnu has a really interesting card. He is called the Lich Lord. He's a 5 mana Dimir legendary creature zombie wizard. If damage would be dealt to him, sacrifice that many permanents instead. Tap him, target instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. It's a 3/3. So, what are we going to do with this? The downside is really large. We don't want this guy taking any damage while he's under our control. However, we want to just donate him and then turn this into like a Dimir burn deck. Now, this deck could be pretty mean. Keep that in mind. If you play a little more competitively and little more, aggressively, this deck could be the one for you. You probably know about this card, Donate. It's a 3 mana blue sorcery that says target player gains control of a target permanent you control. The cool thing about it is that we can actually donate Dralnu, and if he happens to die because we burn him, we can essentially cast Donate again with Flashback. Then you can just do drain life effects or any kind. There's actually a lot of burn in these color set, believe it or not. Now, drain life is an X spell. It says spend only black mana on X. Drain life deals X damage to target creature or player. You gain life equal to the damage dealt, but no more than that player's life total before drain life dealt damage to that or that creature's toughness. So if you're doing this to Dralnu, you only gain 3 life. But hey, it's still pretty good. There's plenty of ways to mana ramp. And you could turn this into a more just a mere burn with the side effect of Dralnu, or you can really focus on donating him. In life, Dralnu had been a warrior, but he fell in battle and was reanimated by an unknown necromancer in Orborg. However, Dralnu retained an unusual level of awareness and intelligence as a zombie and therefore became the apprentice of the Lich Lady that had resurrected him. Now, he learned the necromantic arts from her and then used it to enhance his body and his mind to become a Lich himself. And as one does in this kind of story, he kills his master, takes control of her city and her undead legion. He turns the city into a working city rather than simply a place for him to display his undead collection. Now, from there, he became an unseen major power in Orborg, commanding thousands of undead minions, including mini goblins. Now, if you do end up going to Orborg, watch out because the black mana is strong. Even something very red can turn black. Dralnu's Crusade reminds us of this. It's a 3 mana Rakdos enchantment. All goblins get +1/+1. And then all goblins are black and are zombies in addition to their other creature types. Now, you can easily make a zombie army, as probably Dralnu did, with stuff like Krinko, Mob Boss. It's a 4 mana red legendary creature, Goblin Warrior. You tap them to make X/1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control, and it's a 3/3. So obviously, this will make X/1/1 black zombie goblin creature tokens. So you can keep that in mind. Now, you want to throw in probably not only goblin support in this deck, but also zombie support. Death Baron is one of the OG zombies. It's a 3 mana black zombie wizard. Skeletons you control and other zombies you control get +1/+1 and have death touch, and it's a 2/2. So you can easily make a Krinko Drone Crusade style deck if that's what you wanted. During the Dark Ages on Dominaria, the Lich Nevinyrral was the king of Orborg, whose laws were enforced by the use of powerful magical artifacts. He also was the author of the Necromancer's Handbook, the Bible of Necromancy. Nevinyrral poured all his magic into his disc-shaped phylactery, which was Nevinyrral's disc, detonating it and vaporizing everything within a 10-mile radius. Many Orborg Lich Lords claim to be his heir, but none of them have a tenth of the ancient necromancer's power. In terms of a deck, you can go a few different ways. One way you could go is almost like a Super Friends version. So, Nevinyrral Orborg Tyrant is a 6 mana Esper legendary creature zombie wizard. He has hexproof from artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. And when he enters the battlefield, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token for each creature that died this turn. And then when he dies, you can pay 1. And when you do, you destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. And he's a 3/6. As I shown earlier, there are special arts with Liliana, Gideon, and Jace that are zombies or zombie themed. You could have a Super Friends style around them. Gideon makes a cool emblem that you can try to spam out to increase your tokens. Jace is a good control and draw engine, but there's another cool way you can go with Nevinyrral that's even more flavorful. And that's putting every single Lich card that you possibly can fit into this deck. Interesting enough, there's about 20 of them. Essentially, Liches have 0 life, so a lot of them deal with either losing the game or having 0 life. For example, Lich is a 4 mana black enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, you lose life equal to your life total. You don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. If you gain life, you draw that many cards instead. Whenever you're dealt damage, sacrifice that many non token permanents. If you can't, you lose the game. When Lich is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you lose the game. Lots of you lose the game situations or you don't lose the game situations on that card. So essentially, what we want to do is get Lich out, and then you could do something like Repay in Kind to switch life totals. You would technically still be at 0. Let's say your opponent's at 40, you're at 0. You switch life totals, you both would just be at 0, and you would draw 40 cards. You can put a lot of cool life gain in here. It'll essentially be a draw engine for you. What else could you do? You got Lich's Mirror. It's a 5 mana artifact. If you would lose the game, instead shuffle your hand, your graveyard, and all permanents you own into your library, then draw 7 cards, and your life total becomes 20. So if you have Lich's Mirror out with Lich and they remove Lich, hopefully, I mean, you'll have to restart the game essentially, but you'll be alive. Then there's Lich's Tomb, 4 mana artifact. You don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. When you lose life, sacrifice a permanent for each one life you lost. So a lot of downsides, but that's kind of the whole thing about liches. It's a lot of downsides with a lot of upsides, and that upside being power and longevity. Nevinyrral is the name of the science fiction author Larry Niven, written backwards. He came up with the term mana to denote the amount of magic as a non renewable resource tied to the land. You survive Dominaria, Maybe you became a lich, maybe you became a zombie, who knows? But your candy bucket is only half full. Next stop on the itinerary as a planeswalker is Innastrad. It is a plane that is heavily aligned with black mana, making it a must visit destination this Halloween for a planeswalker like you. You may even see Liliana, who trained there many years in her early years when she first became a planeswalker as a necromancer. You can also meet up with Gisa and Geralf, two sibling necromancers. Both have their own different styles of necromancy, but both take glee when raising the dead and attacking cities. Now, Gisa is your typical necromancer, using black mana to raise the dead and form hordes of zombies. Now, when you think of zombie deck, you probably picture people playing a lot of zombie lords and then making a bunch of tokens and swinging in for game. This deck is kind of like that. This is probably the most normal out of all the decks I have listed here. However, it has some cool twists. Now, Gisa the Hellraiser is a 5 mana black legendary creature, human warlock. It has ward for 2 and pay 2 life. Skeletons and zombies you control get +1/+1 and have menace. Whenever you commit a crime, create 2 tapped 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature tokens. This ability triggers only once each turn. Now, to commit a crime, you're targeting an opponent, anything they control, and or cards in their graveyard. And it's a 4/4. It's interesting that she makes Dimir colored zombies. Maybe she's learning from her brother. Who knows? Now, Gisa the Hellraiser, she is honestly one of my favorite versions of Gisa. Imagine Harley Quinn as a goth necromancer. That is who Gisa is. She is insane. So, what will you be doing with this deck? What kind of crimes will we be committing? Well, if you don't know this, you can actually see it in the art here in most of her card arts. She owns a shovel, and that shovel she uses for her necromancy. It's a whole thing. However, she also likes digging up bodies. Now, I don't know where you live, and I don't know the laws there, but here in America, at least in my state, grave digging is a crime, and we will be committing it like crazy, hopefully, every turn. So every round, we could easily make, hopefully, 8 zombie tokens. Now, what kind of cards are we going to be playing? Withered Wrench is a 2 mana black zombie cleric that exiles cards from the graveyard. It says pay 1, exile target card from a graveyard into 2/2. Now, that is a crime. We cannot be doing that, but we will. We'll obviously have kill spells. We are black. We can put creatures in the graveyard through kill spells. However, black also does the milling thing. Dread Summons is an X2 black sorcery. Each player mills X cards. For each creature card put into the graveyard this way, you create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. It's milling. It's making tokens, zombies specifically, and it gets things in the graveyard so we can commit our grave digging crimes. Now, Gisa Sakani is her full name. She can connect with the plane and feel every dead and dying thing for miles in every direction. Gisa doesn't care about the quality of her work. Undead creatures are useful for the moment and can be cast aside at will. She controls individual ghouls through whistles. Calling large groups of ghouls requires not only a whistle, but a full throated song. She is called the Ghoul Caller because she prefers already dead beings inside their own graves, hence why she always has a shovel with her. Her brother, Geralf, is another interesting necromancer on Innistrad. He is blue aligned and makes Frankenstein like zombies called scabs. When looking into a deck based around him, I came across the card Necroduality. Now, Necroduality reads it's a 4 mana blue enchantment. Whenever a non token zombie you control enters, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Now, just to read the flavor text, this is actually what pulled this up. It's quote, Giraffe's process continues to grow. He can now replicate my own creations with near perfect accuracy. Ludvic's laboratory notes. And we'll get on to Ludvic here in a moment. So I actually wanted to build around that enchantment. So this is a zombie mono blue enchantress style deck, all with the goal to make as many scabs as possible. The commander is Geralf the Fleshright. It's a 3 mana blue legendary creature human warlock. Whenever you cast a spell during your turn, other than the first spell that turn, create a 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature token. Whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on for each other zombie that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. It's a 2/3. So let's say you cast a zombie as your second spell, it'll trigger your commander, make a 2/2 token. Then that creature will come into play with a +1/+1 counter and also trigger Necroduality, which will have another zombie come into play with two +1/+1 counters, so it keeps growing. So for this deck, you also want to play stuff to copy Necroduality. And you also want to do some blinking effects because Necroduality isn't a cast trigger, it's an ETB trigger. So there's plenty of cool ways to go about that. This is blue. Blinking and copying is kind of what they do. Now, Geralf is known as a Stitcher, which is different than a Gold Caller. He uses blue mana to perfect and create zombies. These zombies are called scabs. They're essentially sewn together Frankenstein like monsters in which he can control. He's always competing with his sister, who doesn't really care about quality, while Geralf is the type that really cares about his quality. Now, they got so competitive like most siblings do, and you want to watch out if you're visiting Innistrad when these guys go to war. And they do go to war. They actually had a Necro War, a war between the two of them in which to see which zombie horde style is better. They even came up with multiple rules for the war, like a weird Innistrad Geneva convention. Here are the rules: no spontaneous awakenings, no luring, killing, or raising of bystanders or livestock. Combatants face off at a predetermined place and time. Combatants must have at least 3 limbs to play. And then headquarters are off limits. And after Gisa retrieved the magical sword, the Blood Letter, Geralf added the rules: no magical swords. They abandoned the war and joined forces to attack Thraben during the original Innistrad block. And now, if you thought these guys stuck to the rules, you'd be a fool. They constantly broke the rules. Now, you probably know Frankenstein. Innistrad has its own Dr. Frankenstein who makes his own Frankenstein monsters. Stitchers kind of do it, but Ludvic does it in a more scientific way. He is a necro alchemist, and he's also one of the most influential merchants on Innistrad, apparently. He is aligned with red and blue colors. He's designed the perfect zombie, Crom, and he is trying to replicate it. For the last decade, he's tried to replicate Crom, but he is having a huge problem. He can't do it. Then he finds Geralf, who has the perfected art of necro duality, and that is what he's going to try to use in order to perfect his next experiment. Luckily, in Magic, you can actually do Ludvic with his Crom invention kind of as partners, which is really cool. He's a 3 mana is it legendary creature human wizard. At the beginning of each player's instep, that player may draw a card if a player other than you lost life this turn and has partner, and he's a 1/4. Then you got Crom Ludvic's Opus. It's a 5 mana is it legendary creature zombie horror, has flying and haste, and when an opponent casts his or her second spell each turn, you draw the card, and his partner, and he's a 4/4. Now, for this deck, I actually built around something I've been working with a few times already on this channel. So I'll be brief. It's Flood of Mars, and is it zombie deck just sounds really fun to me. The Flood of Mars is a 4 mana blue creature alien zombie horror with Island Walk. When it attacks, put a flood counter on another target creature or land. It's a creature. If it's a creature, it becomes a copy of the Flood of Mars. If it's a land, it becomes an island in addition to its other types, and it's a 3/3. So the goal of this deck is to make a perfected zombie horde. Ludvic is kind of known for his idea of perfection. So we're going to try to flood the board literally with the Flood of Mars. And their floods will turn other creatures, resulting in a really huge army on all sides. Blue has a spell called Empty the Laboratory, which is probably one of my favorite zombie cards of all time. It's very powerful in regular zombie decks, but the reason why we're going to be getting it in this deck is because it tutors out for the Flood in Izzet colors, and we can easily tutor for sorcery in Izzet colors. It's an X2 blue sorcery. You sacrifice X zombies, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a number of zombie cards equal to the number of zombies sacrificed this way. Put those cards onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So we're going to be playing things that give us armies, kind of like invade the city that amasses X, which makes zombie armies, or just really any zombie token, because the only zombie in this whole deck is the Flood of Mars. Everything else is like a necromancer or what have you. And since we are in red, we can do the extra combat matters kind of stuff. So Fury of the Horde just gives you an extra combat step. And remember, your Flood's attack trigger is an attack trigger. So every combat you turn more and more and more into the Flood if you get more and more combats. Eventually, Ludvic created Olog, who he thought was a perfect replication of Crom. But when ordered to go out and burn and kill the town, he asked why should he? Ludvic didn't make him to be kind and questioning, so he threw him in the basement until he can finish and fix his deposition, which is, I guess this dude's just a nice, chill dude with tentacles on his chest and like hoofs and a spiked tail. Although this video is about unique zombies and how to build them, I will be remiss if we're going to Innastrad. We got to talk about the most popular zombie commander in all of Magic the Gathering, Wilhelt, the Rock Cleaver. Now, he's a pretty good commander, and I don't knock anyone for choosing the most popular commander. That's not what my channel is about. It's to branch out from that. However, if you really like this guy, I mean, he has an interesting story to say the least, and a really cool ability. He's a 4-mana Dimir legendary creature zombie warrior. Whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. And then at the beginning of your instep, you may sacrifice a zombie, and if you do, draw a card. It's a 3/3. So that easily makes you, multiple zombies. You can easily make a zombie horde, and that's totally cool. But what is his story? Now, Wilhelt was a good looking lumberjack that was pretty vain. He wanted a partner to match his caliber. He almost reminds me of Gaston from Disney's Beauty and the Beast, if you've ever seen it. And then one day he sees a girl named Gisa. Yep, it's that Gisa. She rejects him. I get why he's going for Gisa. She's got that goth girl vibe, but big mistake, Wilhelm. It's not going to end well for you. It never does. Now, he actually ended up dying from a tree chopping accident, but was risen from the grave by his pure desire for Gisa. She still wasn't impressed by him coming back to life for her. So he kind of noticed that she likes zombie armies, so he makes his own zombie army to impress her. She wasn't impressed and turns him down. He eventually went back for her to impress her with a new, more powerful army, but was rejected yet again. So he decides to invade Thraben with that army to impress her. Now, she ends up defending Thraben from him, her army beating his army, and then he flees. In 1978, Dawn of the Dead came out with George Romero. In 1981, The Evil Dead was another movie that came out, and it kind of changed how we see zombies. It was one of the first that had undead corpses possessed by demonic figures, and they were called Deadites. It also was one of the first movies that included zombies that had almost like a comedic style to it, creating almost a genre that will eventually go on in the early 2000s of zombie movies that are also comedy, like Shaun of the Dead, for example, or Zombieland. The zombies in this one was actually based around the dark magics of the Necronomicon. Evil Dead, Ash Williams, the main character in Evil Dead, he read some Latin. Bad mistake. He played a record player. Bad mistake of Latin. And it actually caused his friends to get possessed, who then died, and they still carried on even though they were dead. They had increased strength, increased speed, and all that jazz. Now go ahead and pop on by that cabin, planeswalk there, give it a knock. I'm sure the door will open up for you with no one there. And inside is probably a nice bowl of candy. But don't go in the basement because that's where the Necronomicon is. It was a book created by H.P. Lovecraft, first mentioned in one of his writings in 1924. It was a grimoire, a book of magic. It was written by a guy named Abdul Al-Harad. It references many things, one being the old ones, which were cosmic beings of great power. One could consider them gods. In the Evil Dead, it summoned demons to possess people, items, and other corpses. These undead beings had increased strength, like I said. They also had different personalities, which of course you see in zombies all the time, but this wasn't just your undead, mindless personalities. These were almost like torturous, they were comedic as well. It was a really interesting take on the zombie genre. Another deck I've talked about recently is my Linda deck, based around the main protagonist's love interest, Linda, and a card called Cabin of the Dead. Now, Linda is actually a reskin, and so is Cabin of the Dead, of Verena and Field of the Dead, and we'll talk about those cards specifically later. Now, the Evil Dead version, Linda, is a 4 mana Esper legendary creature zombie wizard. Whenever you attack with one or more zombies, draw that many cards, then discard that many cards, you gain that much life. Then you can pay 2, exile 2 cards from your graveyard, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token, and it's a 4/4. And then Cabin of the Dead says it's a land that comes in tapped, you tap it for colorless, or when it or another land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, you create 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So the goal of this deck is to make an army of zombies using landfall and land-based ramp. Esper isn't really known for its ramp, so it's pretty unique. Another fun trick that I've done is actually use Settle the Wreckage. Settle the Wreckage is a 4 mana white instant. It says exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search his or her library for that many basic lane cards, put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So I've actually attacked with 5 zombies before, you Settle the Wreckage on myself, exiling my zombies, getting 5 lands, triggering Cabin of the Dead, getting 5 more zombies. So you still get the Linda triggers, of course. You get the 5 lands, and you get to keep your zombies, but they come in obviously untapped. So it's a pretty cool strategy. Obviously, there's more cards in the deck, but that's a really fun combo you can use. I won't talk about what happened to Linda in the movie. Go ahead and watch it. I don't want to spoil it. It was a really good movie. But Verena, I can talk about. Not much lore on her, but she is a Lich Wizard Monarch from Amonkhet. Her necromantic magic has preserved her semblance of life for countless centuries and made the passage of time meaningless to her. She can peer into a range of unfulfilled futures and raise zombies from the shadow of these discarded realities. She literally looks into other realities and raises their dead. That is very powerful. Imagine if she looked into like DC Comics reality and sees a dead Superman, she can bring him back. That'd be pretty cool. Now, there are a series of undead royalty in the accursed wastes of Amonkhet. They kind of went into them in the last visit on the plane during that car race. If you want me to talk more about the royalty and the characters they revealed, comment down below. It's an interesting zombie topic. I can't really cover all of it in this video. The plane of Amonkhet is saturated in dark energies that cause every living creature to rise again as undead after their death, referred to as the Curse of Wandering. They are known as the Accursed. The Curse of Wandering only affects flesh and ends when the undead has become completely skeletal. Now, cartouches in the mummification process let the zombies be domesticated and survive longer because their flesh will remain. Now, the gods of Amonkhet, specifically the ones from the first set, were turned into zombies after they were slaughtered by Nicol, resulting in the only zombie gods in Magic the Gathering. The curse of wandering is best represented in the Field of the Dead land, where the more land you visit, the more zombies you will see. The next deck is a mono white zombie deck built around God Eternal Oketra. She's a 5 mana white legendary creature zombie god. She has double strike, and whenever you cast a creature spell, you create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And whenever she dies or is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may put her on the owner's library third from the top, and it's a 3/6. Now, The thing I like about this commander is it can be as competitive as you want it to be. You can go with the zombie tribal route, which would be a little more casual, or you can try to build it so you actually spam as many 4/4 black zombies as physically possible. White Mane Lion style effects can be used with Oketra to spam out zombies. Now, it's a 2 mana white cat, has flash, and whenever it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. And it's a 2/2. So you play White Mane Lion. You bounce itself because it says a creature you control, not another creature you control. So you keep spamming it out, and you can even make it cost less, so it's only 1 mana with something like Oketra's Monument, which is a 3 mana legendary artifact. White creatures spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So if you have this out and Oketra out, you play White Mane Lion for 1, you make a 1/1 white warrior and a 4/4 black zombie warrior, and then you return it to your hand, you play it again, return it to your hand, play it again, and then just swing out for game. It's a pretty cool combo. I know what you're thinking. You don't want to go to the accursed waste to trick or treat. Go ahead and knock on those pyramids. It won't do you any good. You want to go to Knock the Moon, which is one of the only cities in Amonkhet that is not overrun by zombies. But there are zombies which you can use. You can use the embalmed kind of zombies that are made through the mummification process. Now, if you're not familiar with mummification, many cultures used to do it, but the most famous is the ancient Egyptian process, which involved removing and preserving internal organs in jars, drying the body with salt for about like 70 days, and then stuffing it with linen and spices, and then wrapping it in layers of linen and bandages. This kind of makes it so the bacteria that would eat your body alive and like necrotize it all dies. So it can't live in that kind of flesh. Now, they actually left the heart in the body as it was considered the center of intelligence and feeling, which are essential for their afterlife. Now, Bolus got them to do this, killing the best warriors in contests by the gods. The gods would kill the best warriors and then mummify them. And then they coated them in a special kind of metal. That metal was Lazatep, as seen in Lazatep plating. Now, it was resistant to magic, which made them a very powerful army when he took all of them, all the greatest warriors from this plane, covered in this protective metal to Ravnica in War of the Spark. The coating made them almost unstoppable, and that's why planeswalkers were falling left and right. How are we going to use Embalm as a deck? Now, Embalm, for example, as you see on Honored Hydra, it says Embalm for 4. Exile this card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie snake Hydra with no mana cost. Embalm only has a sorcery, and it's a 6/6. It also has Trample. So it's a really cool ability that creates a token copy, but exiles it from your graveyard. So you can only use it once, but we're going to be taking that to the extreme. Something like Tristani, Selesnya's Voice, is a 4 mana Selesnya legendary creature Dryad. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Then you can pay 3 Tapper to populate. Now, when you populate, you create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control, and it's a 2/5. So you embalm one of your guys. You're going to get them in the graveyard of various ways by discarding them or milling them or just sacrificing them. And then you get them back as tokens, and you make multiple copies of those tokens. One of the best you can actually copy is Angel of Sanctions. It's a 5 mana white angel as flying. When it ETBs, you may exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. Then it has a bomb for 6. And it's a 3/4. So essentially, you can keep populating this guy and making more and more tokens. And bang, bada, boom, you're O-ringing your opponent's whole field. Amonkhet is unique in the way that their angels were actually all male. One of the few times that happens in Magic the Gathering's history. Liliana, as I said, was trained on Innastrad to be a necromancer. But did you know she used to be a healer that eventually turns into a necromancer? It was a whole thing. Basically, she tried to heal her brother. Brother wasn't doing so well. The Raven Man, total jerk, ended up being like, I think Lim Duel. It was ancient evil guy. Convinced her to use a certain plant. She used it, killed the brother, brought him back to life as a zombie, whole thing. Now, Liliana, Heretical Healer, and Liliana, Defiant Necromancer are a creature that turns into a planeswalker. I love that they did that back in the day. I wish they did that more. Basically, it's an aristocrat style commander that cares about things dying, and then once something dies, you make a zombie and you transform her. So what you could do for a deck with Liliana, you can of course go the mono black super friends, just shove every Liliana in there if you wanted. But what I think would be really cool is if you put like, you could put maybe a couple zombie lords in there if you wanted, but just put everything that makes zombie tokens. Because in Magic, that's kind of what is going on. They no longer make actual cards. They're just like they make copies of characters from other worlds. They don't actually bring them to that world like they used to. So if you made a deck strictly on making tokens, that would be pretty cool. And then you can obviously sacrifice them to do shenanigans like Black does. Special bonus points if you use the zombie token with Liliana in the background. There's actually a Japanese promo that was given out to, I don't know if it was given out to stores or what. I think that it was given out to store. I ended up getting one for my Liliana Tribal deck, but it's a really cool token. Liliana's from Dominaria, but she, when coming to Innastrad, was constantly told that she needed to become a lich to increase her necromantic powers. I guess the reason necromancers turn themselves into the undead is due to the loss of their soul, and it connects them better to black mana, making them a stronger necromancer. Now, she's obviously powerful in her own right. Liliana constantly refused them every turn because she didn't want to give up her appearance. That's also why she signed contracts and deals with multiple demons to stay young and beautiful, along with maintaining her power after the mending. Because she actually, after the mending, she started to age and she hated it. Now, it's not lore accurate that she turned some planeswalkers into zombies, as you see in the art here. But I do love this art. They actually made a Comic-Con style Planeswalker like set of 5 cards that I bought, and it has every one of these guys as cards. It's actually really cool. You could do like a zombie super friends kind of deck where you're turning your planeswalkers into creatures and then turning them into zombies. That's not one of the official decks for this video. I just came up with it just now, and I thought it would be pretty cool and flavorful. Now, harking back to the White Zombie movie, it uses zombies, at quote unquote zombies. They were really just kind of mind controlled humans as forced labor. So I thought, what if we made a factory that did something similar? And so I made a Golgari token style zombie deck that really just makes as many tokens as possible and then plays as many cards as possible that do damage when they die. You got Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. It's a 3 mana green legendary creature, human elf druid, and says tokens you control have tap, add a green. It has choose a background. It's a 2/3. The background I chose for this is Agent of the Iron Throne. It's a 3 mana black legendary enchantment background. Whenever it says your commander creatures you control have, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. And then you can obviously play a lot of artifacts. There's a lot of artifacts that make zombie tokens, and there's enchantments, sorceries, instants, of course. One card that I really like that makes a crap ton of zombies is Wand of Orcus. It's a 3 mana black legendary artifact equipment. Whenever a quick creature attacks or blocks, it and zombies you control gain death touch until end of turn. Then, whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens in equip 3. When you hear the phrase that many, it's always going to be a powerful ability. You have to build around cards like that. They're so powerful. So we can obviously soup up one of our zombies, attack with the wand, make a whole bunch of zombies. And you could put stuff like Plague Belcher, Vengeful Dead, that make your opponent lose life whenever a zombie dies. And then, of course, you want to spam the field with as many tokens as possible. Empty the Pits is a really interesting one. It's an XX and 4 black instant, but it has Delve, which reduces the cost. It says put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield tapped. You're going to be playing hopefully a lot of them. Your tokens are going to tap for mana, so making X spells that make zombie tokens is going to be really effective for you. Now, since it's more about the people and the story, I kind of built this deck so you're the person and you're giving away zombies. So, Daryl from The Walking Dead, Hunter of Walkers, is a good example of this. It's a 4 mana Gruul legendary creature, human archer. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent creates 3 Walker tokens, which are really just 3 2/2 zombie tokens. You can tap them. Daryl deals 2 damage to target creature, and then whenever a zombie an opponent controls dies, you draw a card and it's a 4/4. Now, this is a really fun way to go about it. And actually, when I was looking up stuff for this deck, because I do have a deck link for this one down below, it's actually considered a cEDH deck. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they play a lot of stuff like Pyroclasm, which is a 2 mana red sorcery. It deals 2 damage to each creature. So you're constantly board wiping, which slows down your opponent in cEDH and draws you a lot of cards because this essentially turns into a 2 mana destroy 3 creatures, draw 3 cards. That's pretty good. And you can obviously play stuff like Dingus Staff, which is a 4 mana artifact. When a creature is put into any graveyard from play, the staff deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. So as you're sniping their zombies with Daryl, because he's really good with a crossbow, you're also doing damage to your opponent. In the comics, they don't really talk about the origin of the virus. They don't even call them zombies because it's more about the people. Like I said, it's not like Dawn of the Dead where it was a satellite, or White Zombie where it's voodoo, or Evil Dead where it's the Necronomicon. However, in a deleted tweet, there was a joke. Robert Kirkman mentioned that the origin of the virus is actually from space spores that infected everyone in the atmosphere. In the show, they put the blame on a French laboratory, like kind of scientist that released the virus intentionally. I don't know if that's the official comic explanation or not. Robert Kirkman doesn't really get into it. Whatever the cause of the virus, everyone that dies, no matter if they were bitten or just died from a heart attack, they come back as a zombie. So that's pretty cool. And I really like the story, as I mentioned, about the people surviving the apocalypse together. Now, Hans Slayer Zealot is the in universe version of Daryl, if that's something you're interested in. He is a zombie hunter on Innastrad that wields a crossbow and sword. His art is so great, it's like he's yelling Leroy Jenkins while running into a horde of zombies with a crossbow in one hand and a sword in the other. In the Marvel Universe, there is one dimension you want to avoid at all costs. It's not worth trick or treating there. It's Earth 2149. Not only are there villains in this world, but they will kill you in a heartbeat and they will eat you because they are also zombies. You could, in fact, become a zombie yourself, slowly rotting, your body falling apart over years. It's going to be hard to really fight all of Spider-Man's zombie villains. You don't have that kind of power level. It's cool. It's cool to admit. Don't worry about it. I won't judge you. Sadly, we didn't get a single zombie reference in the Marvel set. Zombie Spider Man would be a really cool card, but they didn't want to bring that level of darkness to the set, I guess. They put Spider T Rex instead. I guess a Dreadmaw Spider Man is better than a zombie Spider Man. Now, in the comic, zombie Spider Man was evil when he was hungry, but once he ate, he'd go back to his human hero personality self and feel guilt and remorse. He actually ends up eating Mary Jane and his Aunt May. He even went to another world where he ate most of the Sinister Six. Sandman was the only survivor. He also stopped shooting his webs. He started shooting his own decaying veins as webbing, a really dark and creepy thing. If you're robbing a bank and zombie Spider-Man wraps you up in his zombie arteries and veins, you're out. You've learned your lesson. If Wizards of the Coast is too cowardly to do it, we will do it. How are we going to make Zombie Marvel in Magic the Gathering? Well, we have two things working for us. We have Marvel characters and about 13 black cards that turn things into zombies. I'm not really counting the regular creature typing change cards like Conspiracy or anything like that. I am talking about stuff like Rise from the Grave, which is a 5 mana black sorcery. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other types and creature and colors. Now, we're going to play Norman Osborn. And Norman Osborn will get stuff in our graveyard pretty easy. He is a 2 mana blue legendary creature, human scientist villain. He can't be blocked. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, he convenes. And then convening, as you know, is you essentially loot. And if you discard a non-land card, you put a counter on him, a +1/+1 counter. Then you can pay 4 to transform him, and it's a 1/1. So you can cast him for his Norman Osborn side, or you can cast him for the Green Goblin. As you cast him for the Norman Osborn side, you can later transform him. And he transforms into the Green Goblin, obviously. He's a 4 mana Grixis legendary creature, Goblin Human Villain, has Flying and Menace, and spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 generic list to cast. And then each non-land card in your graveyard has Mayhem. The Mayhem cost is equal to the mana cost. Now, Mayhem says you may cast a card from your graveyard for its Mayhem cost. If you discarded it this turn, timing rules still apply. So you'll be discarding your cards into the graveyard and then bringing them back with cards like Rise from the Grave. Like I said, there's about 13 black cards that do it. And then you can, of course, play your conspiracy cards as well that naturally change things into zombies. Here's a few more cards that bring things back as zombies. Grimoire of the Dead is a Rise of the Dark Realms on a artifact that returns all creatures as zombies, even your opponents. It reminds me of the Necronomicon, which I wish they made in the Evil Dead Secret Lair. And the Necronomicon was actually also in Marvel Zombies too. Ash Williams from the Evil Dead made an appearance in the Marvel Zombie comics. It's pretty cool. Check them out. You got Dread Slaver. It's a 5 mana zombie horror. When a creature dealt damage by it dies, you return it to your battlefield under your control, and it's a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. And it's a 3/5. Then Afterlife from the Loam is essentially a rise from the grave, but for each player, including yourself. So hopefully you get 4 zombies, and it has a delve cost to reduce its cost, which, like I said, your graveyard will be filled. Another fun Marvel zombie deck I actually talked about in a video before. It's probably my favorite commander from the set. I don't know why. It just is reeking of flavor and it's just so me. It's Lizard Connor's Curse. When it ETBs, it turns any creature that you target into a 4/4. It can only do it once. So what we're going to do with it is we're going to do an aristocrat style deck based around Nim Deathmantle. So we're going to sacrifice the lizard and use Nim Deathmantle to bring it back as a zombie. Nim Deathmantle is a 2 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has Intimidate, and is a black zombie. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 4, and if you do, you return that card to the battlefield attached with Nim Deathmantle to it, and it's equipped for 4. So basically, you sacrifice your lizard, you pay 4, you bring it back with the Nim. It's now a 7/7 black zombie with Trample and Intimidate, and it turns something into a 4/4 lizard. And green has a lot of cool ways to sacrifice that you never really see because when I was making this deck a couple weeks ago, I think there was only like 30 Blink or Aristocrat style mono green decks. You got Perilous Forays. It's a 5 mana green enchantment. You pay 1, you sack a creature, search your library for a land card with a basic land type and put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. That's really good because it can also get shock lands or dual lands. So it's a really cool card. I never see it played, but if you play an aristocrat deck, you can easily play it if it has green. The Nim Deathmantle is a reference to the Nim from Mirrodin. They're their form of zombies. They inhabit the Mephrodros swamp. The Nim are people that have been zombified from the necrogen puffed out of the smokestacks in the swamp. In turn, the Nim themselves vent out that same gas, turning other people into Nim, and it just keeps going. Now, after Mimnarch's defeat, the Nim were briefly rendered inert, and many were killed by the various people on Mirrodin. Now, when they reawakened, they began slaughtering everyone in an event later known as the Nim Onslaught or the Nim Massacre. During the initial phase of the Phyrexian invasion on Mirrodin, Raya was sent to protect a trade settlement called Tin Shields. She was attacked by mutated undead zombie Leonin who were Phyrexians and found the settlement abandoned. She and her party were ambushed. She rallied and fought at a city called Bladehold, hence her other card, Hero Bladehold. She was turned into a Phyrexian in the All Will Be One events. The next deck I built around zombies in the Nim use Phyrexians and artifacts as well. Now, the Nim all care about the number of artifacts you control. So, obviously, the goal of this deck will be to create as many artifacts as we can. Riot Evor, Bane of Bladehold, she used to be the hero of Bladehold, is a 4 mana Orzhov legendary creature Phyrexian Knight. Has Battle Cry. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal damage to one or more players, this combat, prevent that damage. And if damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1 and they can't block, and she's a 3/4. So one thing you want to do in this deck is soup her up or soup someone up or get someone with increased power, have them do damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and make that many artifact token creatures. Nim Shambler, for example, is a 4 mana black zombie. It gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, and then you can sacrifice a creature to regenerate it. It's a 2/1. So let's say you have 3 artifacts, you attack with this, you do 5 damage, but you prevent that, you make 5 more. Now it's a 10. Now it's +8. And it just keeps escalating from there. Nim Devourer, perfect example of another one. It's a 5 mana black zombie. It gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. And then you can pay 2 to return it from your graveyard to play, then sacrifice a creature. Play this only during your upkeep. So you can bring this back at your upkeep by sacrificing a might. Now, they do only have 1 toughness. So you can put stuff in here that give them first strike so they survive their attacks every single time. And since you're making a crap ton of tokens, you can do something like Corpse Knight, which is a 2 mana Orzhov Zombie Knight. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life, and it's a 2/2. So you're preventing the damage your Nim are doing. However, you make tokens instead, and if Corpse Knight is out, they still lose that much life. But not only them, each opponent. Then you can play stuff like Crowded Crypt. When something dies, you put a counter on it, and then you can sacrifice it, make 2/2 zombies for each counter on them. They have decayed. And then you could do something like God Eternal Bantu. It's a 5 mana black legendary creature, zombie god, has menace, and when it enters, sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. And then when it dies, you put it 3 from the top of your library, and it's a 5/6. So basically, you sacrifice all your mites, and it's a really good draw engine. This deck is pretty powerful. I do have it in paper. Looking up a deck based around zombie artifacts led me to a really cool card. Now, Vecna was a character in D&D. D&D came out in 1974, of course, and they have zombies all the time in there. It's another thing that I think made zombies powerful. Well, they had a lich in there named Vecna. He was essentially turned into a god. He was in like the 3rd edition's pantheon of gods. He ended up losing when he became a lich hit and he was destroyed. He lost his left hand and his left eye. But when he became a god, he came back almost complete. He's still missing that left hand and that left eye. I wonder where it went. I feel like Dora the Explorer. I wonder where his eye went. Do you see his eye? And then I paused for like a minute. There it is. Okay, you got Eye of Vecna and Hand of Vecna in the Book of Vile Darkness. Essentially, if you get all 3 of these on the field, you can sacrifice them all using the Book of Vile Darkness's ability to make an 8/8 black zombie god creature token with Indestructible. It gains all triggered abilities of all exile cards. So when it enters the battlefield, you'll draw a card and lose a life. And at your upkeep, you can pay 2 to draw a card and lose 2 life. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, uh, Vecna will get +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Or you can, well, I don't think he gets, he doesn't get the equipped ability, of course. But he gets all those abilities. So he's going to be a really powerful character and achievement unlock situation. You can build this in a variety of ways. I would definitely probably include at least blue in it so you can tutor out all these artifacts. The Gurmug swamps of Tarkir are riddled with the Sibsig, the wandering zombie hordes of the Sultai, as well as Silumgar. Now, this is a place, if you do visit, it's going to be great because they're very wealthy. They'll have the full size cannon bars just like Karlov Manor. Now, an amalgam of fallen soldiers from the other clans of Tarkir form the Sibsig. The Sibsig zombies' bodies are preserved well through powerful necromancy, while the rest of the undead army is kind of left to rot. The Naga of the old Sultai held no respect for their undead slaves, regarding them as furniture while mockingly referring to their creations as a second skin. Now, on the world of Takir, you obviously will find unique breeds of zombies. In the Soldai clan, you might even become one, or you might just be turned into a zombie slave. If you prove yourself, though, you can become one with honor. They call something like this the Sibsig Ceremony. A warrior of the clan, Codis, completed this ceremony. Codis, the Fang Keeper, is a 4 mana Sultai legendary creature zombie warrior. Has indestructible when it deals combat damage to a player. Exile top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. It's a 2-1. So essentially, when he deals damage, you get a villainous wealth, with X being the amount of damage you've done. That's pretty powerful. But what I really like is that he is indestructible, which works with the Sibsig Ceremony. It's a 3 mana legendary enchantment. Creatures spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, and then whenever a creature you control enters, if you cast it, destroy that creature, then create 2/2 black zombie druid creature tokens. I've seen this used in a few ways. Usually people use it if they have a reanimate style kind of effect, and we will have some of those effects in this deck, of course. But what you can really do with it is use that indestructible. Because basically, you play your Codis, the Sibsig Ceremony kills it, makes you a token, but it doesn't really kill it because it's indestructible, but you still get the token. Kind of like if you rapid hibernization an indestructible creature, the creature won't die, but they will get the token. The new Sultai that arose after the Phyrexian invasion and the banishment of the Dragon Lords have instead an honored status with the clan. This is the result of the rebellious necromancers often raising experienced leaders and generals to lead their war efforts against the dragons, with them being highly regarded due to the role that they played in the victory of the rebellion. Some other zombie related indestructible stuff, and there's not a lot, but you can put a lot of different indestructible cards in here. Not all of them will be zombies, but you got Carfell, Kennel Master. It's a 5 mana black zombie berserker. When it enters the battlefield, up to 2 target creatures each get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. So it ETBs, it makes itself and something else indestructible, and then the Sibsig Ceremony, you can stack it so it destroys it after it gains indestructible. So you still get that 2/2. Now, Codis is really cool because he actually underwent the Storm Nexus ritual, becoming bonded with a spirit dragon named Taval. It was actually, they were both in the structure or pre constructed commander deck. The Spirit Dragon in Codis does not rule as Khan, but they do call him the Fang Keeper because of his ties to the dragon. Now, you're trick or treating, your bucket's almost full, but I got a really good plane for you to go to. It's Kaldheim. It's almost like a 10 for 1 because there's 10 different worlds in it. One of those worlds does have zombies, though, that you may want to avoid. It's Carfell. It's a frozen wasteland. Now, these zombies, known as Droger, they retain the intelligence and memories they had in life, and they give their allegiance to Narfi, the last High King of Carfell. The Lich King Narfi still rules from the port of Marn, the greatest of the old cities, and holds court with his undead nobles while a frigid wind blows through cracks in the stone. Adventurers still travel to Carfell to get the treasures that are said to be laying under the ice. Now, that could include gold, but it might even include candy. Reese's are often better frozen. And of course, I had to have Narfi as a commander. He's Narfi, the Betrayer King. He's a 5 mana Dimir legendary snow creature zombie wizard. Other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. Then you can pay 3 snow mana, return him from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and he's a 4/3. So obviously we will be doing the snow theme here, but returning Narfi back again and again will be a powerful ability. We could play snow and zombie cards with his Lord effect, of course, but the combo potential for this deck is kind of insane. Rime Feather Owl is another snow creature that we're going to use for a combo. It's a 7 mana blue snow creature bird, has flying. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of snow permanents in play. Then you get paid to put a ice counter on target permanent. Permanents with ice counters on them are snow. And so, what we're going to be doing this, and the goal of this is to get a snow counter on Soldivi Adnate. It's a 2 mana black cleric. You tap it, sacrifice a black or artifact creature to add an amount of black mana equal to that creature's casting cost to your mana pool. Play this ability as an interrupt. So sack a creature and make that many black mana equal to its CMC. So we play Rime Feather Owl, turn them into a snow creature. Then any mana they produce will be snow mana. So we can sacrifice our commander, Narfi to it, make 5 black snow mana, and then we use 3 of it to bring them back. And then we have something like Intruder's Alarm or something that untaps her, and we can untap her again, do it again, sacrifice and bring them back, untap her, and we will make infinite mana because we will always have 2 remaining from that ability. So you can do a lot of different death triggers. You can do a lot of ETB triggers, or you can just play a big X spell that uses all that mana to one-shot your opponents. In a universe beyond Magic the Gathering, there's a world where zombies do run amok. Instead of a virus or necromancy, they are created by a fungus. The fungus hijacks the host's motor functions, altering their behavior and transforming them into aggressive mutated beings known as the infected. The infected progress through different stages, including runners, stalkers, clickers, and bloaters, each with unique characteristics, levels of danger, and fungal growth patterns. Right, so you got to study these, and I would avoid this world at all cost. Now, the zombies initially spread, from my understanding, from the food. It was tainted with the fungus. So you want to avoid the candy here, but it's good to know about. That way you can avoid this world. There's actually a secret layer from The Last of Us that's coming out this October. The commanders I chose for this are Abby and Ellie, and they read. So Abby is a 3 mana Gruul legendary creature, human survivor. Whenever you cast this spell, create a number of 1/1 black fungus zombie creature tokens named Cordyceps infected equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. Abby enters the battlefield under your control or your opponent's control, and then it partners with survivors. It's a 4/4. Now, one thing I really like about this is you want to sacrifice or recast her so your opponents get even more zombies. Then you got Ellie Brickmaster. It's a 2 mana red legendary creature, human survivor. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, the attacking player creates a tapped 1/1 black fungus zombie creature token named Cordyceps Infected that attacks that opponent. And then it has partner survivors to 1. So this is kind of like Daryl, where you're eventually giving your opponents hordes of zombies for you to face. One thing I really like about this, and it's almost related to a movie I've seen called 28 Days Later. Now, 28 Days Later was in the early 2000s and it revolutionized how we see zombies. We see them as people running around, attacking, and eating the people. But what if the virus isn't something that turns you undead? It just makes you rage filled, so you just attack. The rage virus is something we could use. We can actually goad our opponent's zombies so they almost like they have the rage virus, they're forced to attack. Acquire Mutation is a 3 mana red aura enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. And then when enchanted creature attacks, defending player gets 2 rad counters. These next 7 slides are lore based. I don't have decks for them. I already hit my 20. I told myself I'm only going to do 20. I'm not going to do more. I end up coming with like 40 different decks. I really need to control, no one's going to listen to a 3-hour rant about zombies. Okay, let's speed run some of these zombie topics. Now, on Alara, Esper zombies preserve their undead life with something called an Immortal Coil. It's a black artifact with great power. You can definitely build around this. On another shard of Alar, Grixis, necromancers actually pickle their prey and then they turn them into zombies, preserving them to last longer. They use flesh bags, which are several corpses turned into an amorphous blob mixed with bane swamps and worms. They use them to harvest a life force called Voss over time. They can also make Juggernaut Lich machines called Drag Reavers. On Arcavios, there's a school known as Strixhaven. In that Strixhaven school, there's something called the Witherbloom College. They reanimate spined crocodiles known as Karoks, and they're often used as beasts of burden almost. On the city plane of Ravnica, there are a couple guilds that actually use zombies. The Golgari use magic to make zombies, which can deliberately be made to be mindless walkers for labor purposes, or letting them keep their mental faculties and their abilities, like some of the guild masters, like Jared, who are zombies themselves. Their zombies are usually imbued with plants, insects, or fungi, making them the largest contingent of green zombies in the whole multiverse. The erstwhile were once important soldier factions in Ravnica. They were laid to rest in coffins in a mausoleum, but they eventually rose up during War of the Spark. In another guild on Ravnica, the Cult of Rakdos, they usually make mindless zombie servants. Unlike the Golgari, they actually fit them with spikes, metal teeth, and other implants to make them even more deadly in battle. On the plane of Theros, the returned are undead that escape the plane's underworld, governed by the god Erebos. To escape the underworld, one must lose one's identity and wear a mask made of gold. As such, the returned not only have no face beyond a few holes, but also lose all their memory, both of their past lives and the capacity of holding long term memories in and of themselves. As such, while they are sapient and feel emotion, their existence are nothing but shadow play, being unable to connect with other living beings and form an actual identity, forever in a state of negative emotion and empty rituals. The return go to cities called necropolis. Now, these are neutral cities usually. Asphodel is one of them, and that's where Grey Merchant of Asphodel is referencing. And it's got to be one of the most powerful zombie game enders in the game. On the plane of Zendikar, vampires fully drain the blood of a living creature without destroying the body. That creature doesn't become a vampire, however. Instead, it becomes a null, a faceless zombie that is stronger and much faster than your typical zombies. If nulls are left without orders, they will hunt and kill living things that they can find. However, they're usually used as weapons, although some do escape. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was a longer one, but I wanted to give you a Planeswalker's Guide to Zombies while also making a couple decks. I think I ended up making really 22 decks if you count them. Let's just call it an even 20. How about that? That will help me feel better. Now, if you like videos like this, comment down below and also hit that subscribe, hit that like, and a quick shout out to Locke and Daniel, who are two of my paid patrons. Shout out to them. Thank you so much for contributing. And if you aren't part of my Patreon, you can go ahead and join. It's free for the first tier, and then it has paid memberships with various benefits if that's something you're interested. I really just want people to join for the Discord so I can talk to you. I would love to talk to more people about Magic, whether it's EDH or lore or what have you. Okay, until the next one, guys.